Hello and welcome to Learn, Do, Become Radio. I'm April Perry, and in today's episode, I'm going to be joined by my husband, Eric, as we're talking about how to structure our lives for success. Now, today's podcast is part of a 5-part series for Arise. That stands for Anchor, Replenish, Invest, Structure, and Expand, as we prepare for our new Arise membership, which is going to be opening soon. If you want to stay in touch with us at LearnDoBecome, and if you want to sign up to take our special self-assessment that will help you to dive deeper into the areas we're going to be focusing on in Arise, go to LearnDoBecome.com/Arise. All right, enjoy the podcast, and I will share another little announcement on the other side. Thanks. Welcome. Today we're talking about how to structure our best life to set it up for success. We're so excited.
We are excited.
So at LearnDoBecome, we talk about this concept of architecting a life of excellence. So do you want to talk a little bit about life architecture?
I do.
People ask
Maybe
about this all the time.
So a lot of people love this idea of architecting a life of excellence. It's not kind of our tagline. Like, it is our statement of what we hope to help people do, ourselves included, to architect a life of excellence. Now, excellence can be a word that scares a lot of people off because
our team was debating this the other day.
It's so high and unattainable, and it's like, no, but it's like working toward an ideal, right? Excellence, whatever you want to define it as, doesn't mean you're perfect or flawless and whatever. But the word that people get more hung up on is architecting and using it as a verb. And if that is a challenge or a sticking point for you, I want to share a few things that hopefully we can get past that, because architecting is a powerful word. Architect is a powerful word. They can be verbs or nouns. Promise, I've looked it up, and it's coming more and more into the public use as a verb. But I think I want to really focus on this at LearnDoBecome because it is a process, an action effort to truly imagine, envision, and design, and then build a life that we truly enjoy living and that is of value and of service to so many others around us. So that is the principle of architecting a life of excellence. It doesn't all happen at once, just like as you're designing a building or a home. It doesn't just all come together immediately. There's a lot of ideas or hopes or aspirations and purposes that go into it. And then you talk with others, those close to you, those who are professional, able to help the design process go forward. And it's an iterative process going back and forth with revisions and adjustments and things going on. And then as you build, there's additional adjustments. It's a process, right? It's a growing organic process. And then once that home or that building's done, guess what? People remodel and they come back and make some redesigns and re-architecting.
We reorganize furniture even after we put it into
a
room.
That does not fall into architecting anything. That's just insanity.
I love reorganizing furniture.
Insanity.
Okay.
But not to go too deep into this, but this idea of architecting a life of excellence, we don't want it to like drive someone away with the word architecting or scare someone away with the word excellence. We just encourage every individual who's part of our community, and that does include each of us. How do we truly architect or strive to architect a life of excellence, a life we love, and a life that does good, and a life that blesses and lifts others? And so we do talk about architect a life of excellence. And this idea of architecting, it is this idea of kind of creating a pattern. And the last little principle I bring out here is that so much of life for so many people is lived without a pattern or a framework or a blueprint, some design they're working toward. And if you think about most all of the things that we consume or use on a daily basis, we have recipes for the things that we cook or eat. We have patterns for clothing that's sewn and bought and worn. You know, cars are built to structural engineering and design. They're tested, right? Homes are built to a blueprint. There are so many things that are done to a plan or a pattern in advance of it being created. And yet maybe the most important thing that we will create or be involved in, our lives, the life we live, too often, too frequently doesn't have a whole lot of thought or structure or planning that truly goes into it. Sometimes we as humans live more in a reactionary mode than a proactive kind of design and build mode. And so I don't want to go too much deeper, and you're just smiling at me like I could go on this for days and days.
No, I love it. I'm just thinking about, we have 2 teenage boys right now in our home, and they typically will just kind of live their day as far as what sounds fun, who comes to the door.
Perhaps teenagers, maybe boys, maybe girls, aren't so invested or involved in the idea of designing and architecting right there. But again, I think as parents, as we have our children, younger and maybe teenage or even young adult children, It's the way we maybe architect our lives and maybe model and encourage them that kind of helps create that pattern for them as well. So just want to really kind of focus as we go through these principles of Arise, that life architecture and really having that structure, having a view and a vision of what we want that structure to become is very, very important.
And I would just want to distinguish there's a difference between scheduling and architecting. Yes. I was always a very good scheduler. And so I had a planner when I was 13. I loved my planner, carried it all through high school. I was very good at scheduling and giving myself long lists. But architecting is something that Eric and I have been learning how to do, where we're actually thinking ahead. What do we really want for our lives? And what feels exciting to us? And how much rest time do I want to have? And creating the life that actually feels really good instead of just really full.
Yeah.
Right?
And one of the things I'm just most grateful for, like in our relationship and our marriage, is that we are learning and developing these skills. And there's a passion for a couple of things, something that April's found, something that I've found. I really am very passionate about this idea of life design, life architecture, because I think it's truly important in us being able to identify the what and the who and the how we want to become in our lives. And then April is very good at taking these things as we kind of envision them and dream and kind of design them to be able to figure out, okay, how do we put the actions and the plans and the activities in place that are going to most effectively help us get to those outcomes, to those dreams. And so we're hoping as we talk together that there will be a number of thoughts and ideas that come into your mind as we share some principles or ideas that will truly help you think about the life you want to design and build toward, and some simple approaches that will help you move more in that direction.
Now, in the introduction to this podcast, I talked about this Arise framework, and the S is structure in Arise. Now, in our STEP program, Steps to Everyday Productivity, we help people create a STEP command central, and that provides the framework for this additional structure that we're going to be putting into place. So if you have not yet gone through our STEP program, I do strongly encourage it, unless you're already totally organized and you don't have any piles of clutter or mental overwhelm, then you're probably good to go. But if you do have piles of clutter and mental overwhelm, the full STEP program is going to help you get that solved. It's going to feel amazing. But today we're going to talk about the structure of putting that solid life architecture into place. And this is going to point us in the direction that we want to go. It's very doable, and it's going to keep us from drifting because it gives us a very active way to live and progress. So for me, this concept of structure has several facets, and I'm just going to list 3 of them. So first is routines, things like self-care, marriage care, family strengthening, training our children, things that we need to do for our business, right? Second is goals. So we have like our personal, family, business goals, maybe our church and community, other things that we're doing. Third is becoming. And this is where we talk more about this connection with our higher power, our personal mission. So when I think about how to structure my routines and my goals and my becoming, I often ask myself, well, how am I going to make sure that all the ideas and hopes and dreams happen? Because it's really, really easy to get overwhelmed when you think about all the stuff. And especially if it's not prioritized and it's not categorized, our brains, because we're human, we can only process so much information at a time.
Well, maybe we can clarify that question a little bit more. How am I going to make sure that all the ideas and hopes and dreams happen? Just like we talked about in our last podcast about investing.
Not all of them.
I think you want to know what all those are. What are all the goals and hopes and dreams you have? But how do we make sure that the most important ideas and hopes and dreams are happening first, right? It's that prioritization process of then investing our time in the structure, because it can feel overwhelming. And sometimes we do it to ourselves. I ask the same questions of myself, April does of herself, questions that maybe are impossible to do, but we feel like if we're really good, if we're really hardworking, if we're really effective, or efficient even, using a different word, we're going to be able to get all of them done. And so again, we want to help you identify what are the most important ones, and then how can we make sure that those most important ones are happening in a consistent, meaningful, developmental way.
Yeah, well, just a little side note, Eric and I moved into this home we're living in now a few years ago. It'll be 4 years this summer. And we really wanted to do some changes to the backyard. We wanted to add a little basketball hoop back there and just have a little more seating area. And we keep saying, oh, we'll work on it in the spring. Oh, we'll work on it in the fall. Oh, we'll work on it. And then other priorities keep taking its place. And raising teenagers, to be quite honest, has been one of our very top priorities, where we can only think about so many things at a time. So yes, I believe the backyard will get done at some point.
We might be 90, so come on over and enjoy a good backyard moment with us then.
But you're right, it's the things that are most important. And I think that's something that we've become really good at, is being able to look at all the things that we want to do, need to do, and be able to say, okay, we only have so much time and energy, where's it going to go?
And I think part of it is also allowing yourself to accept that idea that you're moving in the right directions and you can't get to everything all at once, because there is a little bit of a cognitive load. There's that mental weight that you carry. Like as we look out into our backyard and it's kind of like all over the place and it's not, super usable. It's usable in some ways. But every time we look out our back window, we're like, you could think, oh, and sometimes I do. But realizing, okay, what we're doing right now are of higher value or importance right now in the grand scheme of things, in this greater architecture. And yes, we will get something happening out there soon. But it doesn't have to happen tomorrow, and nothing bad is going to happen if it doesn't.
Right. But this is where we have to make those hard decisions. And there's that quote, and I'm going to say it badly, but it's something about clutter is nothing more than unmade decisions or something like that. I don't even know if I said it right. But whenever we have a lot of stuff sitting out, whether it's physically or a lot of stuff in our minds, it's typically because we haven't made a decision. Is it a priority? Is it not? But there are some hard decisions that have to be made. And some of them aren't necessarily about the project itself, but it's things like, well, who will my friends and associates be along this path? Or what habits am I going to put into my day? Or what is it I am working towards? What's this end goal I'm working towards? Or how could I make some of these needed changes? And even being aware of the changes we need to make. I mean, that ability the ability to be self-aware, it's not common. There's a lot of times where I haven't been very self-aware, or where we've been around people. I know you've had that experience too, who aren't self-aware. And there is not a whole lot you can do in that situation. But when it's yourself and you're like, okay, I actually do want to take time to think and to assess. We were having that conversation this morning as we were getting ready. Just that ability to be able to look at your own life and be able to assess, what could I do to make things better? And so that's what we want for each person in our community. But all of this doesn't happen perfectly. And, as I was putting together the notes for this, I was writing down, like, I feel hesitant even putting this out there, because I know I'm only touching the tip of the iceberg as we talk about structure. But I think that that's the whole point. Today, we're not talking about this perfect structure for your whole life and it's, we're going to check off the box. It's about starting. And like Eric had said, there are going to be changes. You might, remodel that house once you've created it. You are definitely going to change up what your project list is, because new priorities will come into your life. But when we know not everything's going to happen all at once, and we create some kind of structure we can wrap our minds around, that enables us to get moving. And that's what Eric and I work for every week, every month, is we have to wrap our minds around something that we could say, okay, this is what we're doing.
Well, that's one of the things that makes me most excited and grateful for this amazing LearnDoBecome community that we have and that's growing, is that these are people who are adding together, all of us together, looking for ways to improve ourselves. And I want to just clarify what that means. It's a process of improving even just one little thing. It doesn't have to be some massive scaled, I had to do this 18-step project and now I feel like I've accomplished something.
Yeah.
It is truly a community that understands, okay, wherever we are, it's identifying what's one thing that I could do in a different way, a better way, to become a little better, a little stronger, a little more able, a little happier, a little more serviceable. And so I kind of share this little side note here, that as you're listening to this podcast or as you come across other resources in your daily life that inspire or encourage you to be a little better than you were, and you take a step in that direction, that is cause for celebration and a wonderful thing. Like, that's the process of growing and becoming. And so I love the idea that we don't feel like we have to have everything figured out and do everything that day. It's these small incremental changes consistently made that truly are going to lead us to a better life and really are going to help accomplish a lot of the life architecture that we had built once. Because the architecture, you build it, and I don't think you have to be looking at it every day and trying to be doing something conscientious on it. It's these little incremental changes that are subconsciously or just internally driven toward that architecture you've defined that you want for your life.
Well, I want to just pause for 1 minute because I was listening to this podcast. I always quote Dr. Burns, and Eric laughs at me all the time. But he's one of my favorite authors.
I never know which doctor she's quoting. She's always quoting a few great
I love reading,
researchers and experts.
But Dr. Burns is one of the top psychiatrists in the world. And I was listening to his podcast, the Feeling Good podcast. And he said, I was having a conversation with Dr. May. And we've had both Dr. Burns and Dr. May on our Learn to Become Radio podcast. But he said, as we were driving in the car one day, Dr. May said to me, I'm just really trying to become a better person. And Dr. Burns said to him, well, I hope you get over that desire pretty quickly. And I was a little shocked when I first heard that. And I thought, what? Why would we not want to become a better person? But actually, the root of that was we don't want to feel that when we achieve something, when we check off a box, when we complete a project, that has somehow made us a better person, because then the person who does the most projects is the best person and they're now superior to everyone else. And a lot of the reasons why we feel a lot of anxiety or depression is when we're looking side to side, or even just looking at ourselves and thinking, why didn't it match up because I didn't get enough done. So I think and just clarifying, I think as you're saying the words, trying to become better, it's not because we're not valuable enough as we are, or we have to achieve in order to be worth something. It's that desire to feel happy each day, to be able to have a life that you want to live. But it's not that we're becoming a better person than we were. It's just we're improving our circumstances and maybe improving how happy we feel. I don't know. How would you define it? You're looking at me.
I think we do. As human beings, I think we have an innate desire to be improving and to become a little better than we were.
Creativity.
Right. Growth, progress. I love these words: growth, progress, transformation, improvement.
Yeah. And
it doesn't have to be massive, but I think we're just all wired. I think all humans are wired to want to be improving. And so, we mentioned this before. And I wouldn't even call it competition. We have is with ourselves. It's identifying who we are and who we hope to become more of, right? And so it's not I have to be better. It's never a better than someone else or better than it's not a sideline or kind of a side facing competition. It's looking, and I don't know, maybe we were thinking a little differently here. I think we want to look at ourselves because we know who we are, and we have, I think, internal aspirations. I believe they're either personally sourced or divinely given as to what we're capable of growing into, of becoming. And that's the whole point of Learn, Do, Become, right? We want to become. Become means change and growth. And so I don't want to get too bogged down.
No, but I think before we jump into how to structure projects, because I could talk about structuring projects all day long. I think it's super fun. But I just need to add, I suffered with achievement addiction for a lot of years. I even get a little choked up talking about it because it was causing a lot of stress for me. And I didn't even know there was a such thing as achievement addiction. I thought I was just doing a good job at accomplishing things. Because in high school, I got lots of awards by having achievement addiction. I was captain of this club and captain of that club and, tried to excel at everything. And I thought the more points I got and the more exhausted I was, the more valuable I was as a person. But I had a lot of meltdowns in high school. I didn't spend enough time with my mom and dad, which I don't have them anymore. Sorry, but I had all those years in their home, but instead of spending, Eric's getting me a tissue here. Instead of spending more time just with them, I was out trying to achieve a lot because that's what I thought I needed to do. And that carried into motherhood, carried into my relationship with Eric, carried into Learn to Become. And I would wake up every day and I'd have all these projects and things I want to do. And if I couldn't get them all done, I felt like it caused a lot of anxiety for me because I felt like I was not worth as much as if I had gotten them done as I would have been worth. So this has been really big for me to not have that achievement addiction anymore. And even as Eric and I were sitting down to record these podcasts today, I'm like, you know what? I'm just excited to get to talk with you and record some things that hopefully will help other people. But if, a lot of people don't love it or it doesn't turn out how we want or whatever, that's okay. I'm not stressed about it. I just want to record because I enjoy it. Yes. And I'm trying to change my life. So as we talk about projects today and how to structure it, if you get none of the projects done, it's not gonna.
Are they still a good person? Do they still matter? Well, I know
it sounds ridiculous, but that's what stressed me out all these years.
But I think you're hearing some emotion and kind of some real, we're hoping we're genuine in what we're sharing here. It's trying to figure out. No one has all the answers, but but we're trying to live our best lives. And so it may be, as you go through some of this thinking and some of the things we're sharing, you might be unpacking some of the things from your past. And I think it's important to recognize what you've come up through, what you've come from, and identify ways to maybe think or act or live differently or better. But again, that's progress, right?
Yeah.
The very fact that you're having this conversation, like you're unpacking a few things, because achievement addiction, maybe it's not the most healthy thing, but if you look back on it, there's no need to have regret about a lot of the things that you accomplished. In many of those things you did, you served people, you created a program, you lifted, whatever it may have been, there was good being done. Would you restructure it a little bit if you could go back with the hindsight of 20 plus years? Yes. And you might have invested a little bit more time. And yes, your parents have passed, but it doesn't mean you can't figure out ways to cherish their legacy and help it be shared with. I mean, there's ways.
Well, now I can cherish you and our children. And,
absolutely true.
There's
always ways. And so I think, living with regrets or living, too much in the past can be, dangerous, but it is helpful to learn from and to grow. And I think we're all doing that. I probably not as introspective. We were talking before we started recording this. April's much more introspective and maybe looking at things and evaluating kind of ways to grow and go forward. I don't know if it's a guy thing or just a me thing, but maybe we're not as...
But you said it last night. I said goodnight to you last night, and I was just in a mood last night. I was like, this has not been my favorite day. This and this and this happened, and Eric got home late. I had nothing to
do with her yesterday.
No, Eric was gone, and then he had meetings, and anyway, he got home a little bit later, and I just kind of went to bed. I'm like, I've just kind of had it today. And I said, good night, I'll see you tomorrow. And do you remember what your response was?
I don't.
You said, maybe. I'm like, what? Like, well, maybe you'll see me tomorrow. I mean, there's going to come a day you're not going to see me tomorrow. Hopefully you'll see me tomorrow.
Oh, this turned dark really quick. Wow.
No, I appreciated it because I actually thought about that as I was going to bed, as I got up this morning. I was like, you know what? I need to make sure I'm treasuring every day I have with you, with our children, with our community.
And not all days are going to be or feel golden. They're not going to be amazing.
It's not golden
but
yesterday.
We recognize that that's life. There's some great days and there's some challenging days. I was actually talking to one of the individuals that I work with in our community, and she'd mentioned that as she was going on to some service mission, that one of her friends had said, there are no bad days. Just bad moments or parts of a day, and you get to decide what you do with that. And it really just struck me as because there's some bad days out there, and I've been guilty of saying that. Some days are bad, and some days are great, and she's like, no, I mean, every day has moments. I mean, there's just subcomponents of pieces, and so I don't know, we're just all over the place right now.
I know, I'm like, we haven't even got into structuring projects, but I feel like this is an important foundation for it,
It is, but I think just being able to step back and realize, getting back to that whole idea of progress or growth or becoming a better self, like just taking the time to maybe have thought through this, we've talked a little bit here, maybe you're better off or you're a better self because you recognize, okay, like from something you felt and recognized last night and just having this conversation, maybe we look at things in our daily life, stressful and frustrating as they might be, as this is a moment, it passes. We want to make the most of each day. We want to be as good and as serviceable and as improving as we can. Doesn't mean it could be just one thing. Like that's enough. So I don't know, this might sound like an oversimplification, but what we're really trying to encourage is for us to be thoughtful enough in our lives to say, okay, how am I wanting to grow and improve, to serve and to love others? Because and that's maybe a value, part of our value system for us, and maybe it isn't the same as yours, but I think that's where a lot of the reward and the joy of living, and I think the legacy of life that we want to live. And if we're talking about architecting a life, when we aren't here anymore, when it's the maybe you'll see me tomorrow, and I wasn't trying to get too dark with that. I think I was just being more flippant on it. Maybe you'll see me. What if I always joke with our kids, hey, have a good day, I'll see you after you get back. I'm like, unless an asteroid lands right where we're driving, like, why do you say that? But it's true. I mean, life is a very fleeting thing. Like, we don't have total control over how long we live in all of our circumstances, and so we don't do it perfectly, but we want to try and make the best or the most of our daily and life experiences. So I guess I just share that, and we'll kind of wrap up and move back into where April had planned for us.
Project organization.
April, wherever really wants to go, is just this idea that we try to do the best with our lives each day, each moment we're given. And sometimes that'll work out great, and sometimes it won't work out quite as well. But we never give up hope, right? Hope and a desire to improve, to lift, to serve, to love. truly are going to be the things that reward us in the ways that are most meaningful. It isn't about, tangible temporal things like, money and other things that can buy. And it's not about accomplishment and this addiction that sometimes I think all of us feel. It's the relationships, it's the experiences, and it's the way that we're able to connect with others.
And as we talk about the structuring, I think you've done it well when you feel like you're in a state of flow, when you feel like, oh, things are just moving in a good direction. I'm feeling happy. I've got that balance of being challenged but not overwhelmed. I'm feeling great with my relationships, right? When you have those things working, you feel good. Now, the little process we're going to map out here, it's also covered in our free training, How to Finally Stop Drowning in Piles. You can sign up for that at LearnDoBecome.com/step. We'll have a link in the show notes as well. But we're just going to go over a quick little process. So if you have a lot of projects, things that you're thinking about.
Here comes April, and this is what she's passionate about, and she's going to help you with this.
So first we do a mind sweep, right? Get everything out, personal, family, business. And we have in the program, if you are in the program, go find the mind sweep. We have a little list. If you have the book, Getting Things Done by David Allen, he's got a great list. We've tailored ours a little bit more towards family and stuff like that, but you can go check that out. But having a mind sweep and just getting it all out is super helpful. Then we choose 7 or 8 for the month. And that's what we talk about in our free training. We know it's hard, but you can't do hundreds of projects all at the same time. So you just choose 7 or 8 for the month. And I keep mine on a chalkboard in my office. I was looking at it this morning. And I'm actually moving forward really well on all of them. We're about
amazing.
2/3 through the month.
Month after month, like she'll write them out. Our one daughter will actually draw them up in a really artistic, creative,
really good little chalkboard
happy,
colors.
fancy way. You can do it however you want. But I'm actually really impressed because I watch April do this, and I'm not as good at doing this. I'll be quite honest. Like I focus on certain projects every month, and like it's just not how I work typically. Like I'll work on projects, but it's just a different way than April does. But I don't work on too many at the same time either. I just don't do it in the same focused way that she does.
Yeah.
But I'm amazed because watching her, she sees those in a simple visual place. She is making headway, and it's something that's bite-sizable enough that she can get it done in a month. And at the end of a month, she's got those 7 or 8 projects done. And if you do the math on that, people say, well, I have hundreds of projects. Well, do the math. If you want an exercise in futility, focus on 50 projects, trying to do something on them at the same time all at once. I'm not trying to be mean to anybody out there, but it is an exercise in futility. You're going to get discouraged and frustrated, and your mental, emotional, physical state is not going to benefit from it.
By the end of the year, you maybe got 4 done.
I mean, and that's I was going to lead to that. If you look back and take any given year where that's been your approach and really look at the projects that you got across the finish line, it will be discouraging. And we're not trying to discourage you on this podcast. What's been really encouraging is if you're focused on these 6 to 8 projects per month, April's going to finish out here and show you how to get them done. But it's a powerful thing because you feel like you're progressing, you're accomplishing. Maybe that's part of your accomplishment addiction still. You're like, I knock down projects every month.
But I'm doing them joyfully. I'm not stressed about
You're enjoying them. But look at that. At the end of a year, 12 times 8 is what?
We're doing math right now.
We're doing math on the podcast.
96.
96. So if it's 6, it's 72 to 96 projects, real, meaningful, multi-step projects that you cared about, you identified. You got almost 100 projects done in that year. And if you do that over the course of a few years, you will have gotten a few hundred projects done.
And then 2 decades.
And it really does work. I know it sounds like we're oversimplifying, but 6 to 8 projects a month, simply focused on, simply done, you are going to accomplish amazing things month by month, year by year, decade by decade. It will be transformative.
So once you have those 7 or 8 projects, or saying 6 to 8, it could even be 3. You don't have to have that many.
You pick your number, but don't go above 8.
Whatever feels good.
Do not go above 8.
Just the minute you start feeling stressed, you know you have too many. But you work on the select projects without getting distracted. And you don't add more without taking another one off. So if you did complete one, then you can add another one on, like Eric uses this Pez dispenser analogy.
Finish it and replace it, or get them all done and just celebrate, and then start with
or if an emergency comes up where you're like, oh shoot, something just happened with one of our children, or a health problem with my dad, or whatever. Then we're going to remove one and put it on our next in line list.
But honestly, truly never more than 7 or 8 at a time. It will just overwhelm.
And you might start to panic and think, no, but I have so much to do, I can't pick them. But like Eric was just saying, honestly, it's an exercise in futility to try to do all of them. I actually did a object lesson one time in a class, and I had 12 ping pong balls, And I asked a volunteer to come up and I said, okay, I'm going to throw all these balls at you and I want you to catch them. And this person caught 0 balls because I just threw these 12 balls.
So then we threw 50 of them at the same time and said, catch these.
The funny thing was that she was even trying to catch them, you know? She's like, okay. And she signed up for it. And so then when we threw 1 ball at a time, it worked out great. So that's how I want you to think about your projects. And then again, as you finish, you can add more. I just think of it section by section. Like if I have my personal projects, I don't add more in there until I've finished those current ones. But, or say with professional ones, sometimes my professional projects cycle through more quickly because I'll get a couple done and time for the next one, and that's great. But you want it feeling exciting. You want it not feeling stagnant. You never want the list to feel stagnant, but you want it to feel energizing. So if you feel a little lift when you look at your current projects list, you're on the right track, okay?
So I'm going to ask an important question from our community members named Kelly.
Yes, please.
She has a question. She wants to know what you think, and I think you have some thoughts on this. Okay. She says, if I write down 300 projects and pick 5 to do this month, and probably 5 new ones will get added each month, what happens to the 295? Sure, some will never happen, but I have a hard time believing that they are all not important. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, love it, Kelly. She actually submitted this, I think, like a year ago or something like that. I don't know if she's still listening to our podcast.
You're a bad person.
Kelly, if you were... I think I may have emailed this to her before I put the notes in.
If that makes you feel better.
I hope I did. All right, if not. So I have thousands of projects, to be honest, on my list. And I think they're all, quote, important. But they've never gotten done, and most of them likely will never get done. But there is a difference between important projects and essential projects. So we could go through our lives doing a lot of important things, and this can exhaust us. But it will certainly fill our time. Like I was saying earlier, there's a difference between planning, or structuring and architecturing, scheduling and architecting. You can keep yourself busy, but it doesn't mean you're going to build the life that you really want to live. So I personally add about 15 to 30 new projects to my someday list or my next in line list every single month.
So let's do the math here. If she adds 15 to 30 and she's getting 8 done, what's happening to the list?
Yeah.
The big list.
Yeah. Oh, it's massive how many things I could do or would want to do or, have thought about doing, because it's kind of that circle of knowledge. The more knowledge that you get, the bigger the perimeter. It's called the perimeter of the circle. I'm going back to my geometry days. The circumference, the bigger.
That line that makes the circle.
Yeah, the bigger that gets. Like the more that you know, the more you know you don't know, because now there's just so much, Okay, we'll keep moving. But here's what happens. Even though I have thousands and thousands and thousands of projects and my vision keeps expanding, first of all, the most essential things do get done, and my life feels exciting because I'm focusing on what is truly most important. Second, a lot of the little projects get done along the way without me even trying, because I wrote them down and they just kind of happened. So sometimes I go to my someday list to look at it and see what else I've been dreaming about. I'm like, oh yeah, that just kind of happened, or so-and-so did that for us, or this thing changed. And so it's amazing how many things just even happen naturally without you having to put it on a projects list. It'll just kind of, it'll happen. Kind of like when you put things on a vision board and then you look back 5 years later and you're amazed at how it happened. It's awesome. Okay. Also, number 3, there's time for projects to incubate. I believe that every good idea has its time. And I learned this from the book called How to Be CEO or How to Become CEO. Eric got the book years ago and I read it secretly because I didn't want anyone to know I was interested in being a CEO. So I was like, mom at home taking care of a few kids. Anyway, I was super excited about that book. But I learned that phrase, every good idea has its time. So I started this little binder of ideas and I got excited about it because I thought, well, I can't do it right now, but I could maybe do it later. And Eric and I believe that we live after this life as well. So not only do we believe we have time now, but we believe that we have time after this life to do wonderful things, which I think that feels really exciting because we see it as an eternity of fun. We don't have to do it all
that
just
could
now.
be a procrastinator's nightmare. I'll just get to it later.
But at the same time, we believe that this life is precious. So, I think of like putting the jewels in now, the things that are the most important, the things that you want to accomplish. And so also I want to share this little analogy that life isn't like a grocery store conveyor belt. And this
or
is...
like the chocolate conveyor belt in I Love Lucy, where she and Ethel have to package all the chocolates or something bad happens.
Well, we were at a Power of Moms retreat, and I don't remember who it was who said this, but there was a mother who was there, and she raised her hand and she said, I used to think that all of my tasks and opportunities was like the conveyor belt at the grocery store. And I'm at the end and I'm trying to bag them all.
Bag it all.
As like quickly as I can, but they're just getting all piled up, and how that happens sometimes. And the oranges fall out of the bag and they're rolling all over, right? You've seen that happen at the grocery store.
I've been there.
So she said, I used to think of it like that. But she said, now I've started thinking about it like the airplane luggage, what do they call it? The little... Not the cart,
baggage claim.
The baggage claim, how it goes in a circle. And if I miss it the first time, it's okay. It's going to come around again.
All the suitcases are yours, and you can just pull them off when you're ready for that suitcase.
But you know what?
They're coming back around.
Just that concept of thinking about your ideas and goals more like the airplane luggage pickup rather than the grocery store conveyor belt. Just that image reduced my stress because I thought, yeah, that's fine. You pick off the most important things and it'll come around again.
One thing I just want to make sure we clarify the mechanism you mentioned. She passed over very quickly. So as April has ideas and impressions, and you have them too, as you're listening and you're going through your life, there are a lot of projects and meaningful activities you want to engage in and complete. They're going to come to mind, and you need a place to put them. And so inside the system that April teaches, she has a list. She has a current projects list, and that's where the 7 or 8 that she's focused on that month go. But as all these other projects and ideas come to her, they go on a list called the someday list or the next in line list, right?
Yeah.
And it's basically just a great big catch-all. Incubation, next in line, someday. I mean,
yeah.
I don't want to get too...
We won't worry about the labels.
We don't
Not now. It's my not now
the
list.
Projects that mean something to me but not now list.
Right.
We don't want to get into the weeds here, but I think that's an important place to go. Maybe just describe, if you will, like as ideas come to mind, you add them to this list. It can be written, it could be digital inside an Evernote or something. But then what you're doing, and just maybe add to this, is you're occasionally, maybe talk about how frequently you do it, occasionally looking over that list. Because what you're going to do is move the ones that truly, as you look over lots and lots of projects quickly, moving ones, oh, that one isn't, like that one needs to happen soon. That one needs to happen soon. They move closer to the top like cream rises.
Yeah.
And so as she's going then to pick her next projects for the month, the current ones, she might pick a few of the ones that have risen to the top of this larger, longer list. But I just bring that out because it can feel overwhelming. Say, just write them all down somewhere. And a person's got 500, 750, 1,000 projects that they've written down. And they just look at that list in despair because I'll never get to those.
Yeah.
So what's the process to kind of like just cull through those occasionally and move those to the top?
Well, there's 2 ways I do it. One is I have a routine set up where, maybe for me it's probably once every quarter that I open up my someday list or my next in line or incubation. Because most months it's pretty obvious what I need to do because I know what I've been struggling with or what we're working on or what our highest priorities are. But I do have a routine set up where at least quarterly I'm like opening them up and just, skimming, seeing if there's anything that I wanted to remember. Second is when I put a project on that list, if in my mind I'm a little pained that it's not happening right now, I create a calendar trigger and say, okay, well, when would I want to be reminded of this? Like at least maybe 6 weeks from now. And then I have it pop up as a calendar trigger saying, hey, do you want to reevaluate if now's a good time to do this project? So that way I feel really good when I put it into that not now category because I know I already have a system that it's going to come back to me. So instead of me having to go to the airplane luggage and look around, I know it's going to come right back and be right in front of me at that specific moment that I've scheduled. That makes sense?
Great.
Okay. So going back to the idea that there's no prize if we're exhausted and we don't have to do every project. When we learn to structure our lives to enable that peace, that growth, progress, meaningful relationships, then I think we're going to notice something really different in how we feel on a day-to-day basis. Now, there's a book called The Noticer. Eric, I think, has read the whole thing. I've read maybe 20 pages.
She needs to finish the book. It's amazing.
I actually was really enjoying it. I'm not sure why I stopped reading it, but there was a quote on there. I think it's page 6. You gonna read it? I
am.
Okay.
You ready for it?
Yep.
He says, the main character of the book says, I am a noticer. It is my gift. While others may be able to sing well or run fast, I notice things that other people overlook. And most of them are in plain sight. The old man leaned back on his hands and cocked his head. I noticed things about situations and people that produce perspective. That's what most fat folks lack, perspective, a broader view. So I give them that broader view, and it allows them to regroup, take a breath, and begin their lives again.
So I was inspired just by him calling himself this noticer. And so I look around sometimes and try to see what I can notice. And what I see are a lot of people who have struggled like I have with perfectionism, anxiety, discouragement. I know you've had a lot of interviews and experiences with people recently who have been struggling with that, who have been saying, yeah, I've got a lot of anxiety, have a lot of discouragement. And the thing is, we want to use our voices. We want to feel good about ourselves. We want to find meaning in the everyday. But too often the paths or the structure that we create in order to achieve these things leads to that absolute frustration. So it's too much time paying attention to what other people think about us, or too much time listening to political banter. I mean, how long have we spent last year?
We'll just move on now.
Political banter. Too much time focusing on the external, like weighing ourselves, looking in the mirror, seeing how many
likes we have
on social media. Yes. Or not enough time sitting still, or not enough time connecting with our higher power, or pursuing our personal mission, or seeing things as they really are. And I think that we shy away from structure because we think it's going to make us feel stuck. I have a lot of people who email me and say, I like to be more flexible. I fly by the seat of my pants. I just want to be able to have a carefree life. But it's having that structure. And I'm
sometimes one of those people.
You are one of the most pronounced voices in my life wanting that flexibility and structure, which I respect. But I think that's why our strengths complement each other so well, because yes, I'm geared a little more towards the structure and I help get some of these things
flexibility,
done.
Flexible structure.
Awesome? But I think that when you have that structure, particularly when it comes to organizing lists, projects, papers, and stuff into this command central, which I'm determined to get a command central on every desk. That's like my life goal. One of my life goals.
That's my life goal.
I know it sounds so weird. I just get super excited about it. But putting those things into that framework of the routines and goals and the vision for who we want to become, I believe that's when we can transform the world. Having these ideas and like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I were able to do that? Great. But that desire isn't going to get you anywhere unless you have that structure. Well, it goes back to the idea of
how many people, and I don't mean to sound, morbid or critical, but how many people die, leave this mortal life, this earth, with their music, their creativity, their possible great contributions still in them. And and how anguishing it must be to spend years and decades moving, especially to that middle to latter part of your life, knowing that you've got these ideas, you've got these things you want to see realized, and then someday your life comes to an end. And like, how many people have been interred, have been cremated with that music still uncreated, unreleased? And I don't mean to sound, again, morbid about this, but this idea that April talks about, I mean, I am not like, okay, let me go build my command central and do everything exactly how April does it. But this goal that she has of helping so many people, everybody, have this command central, it's more this idea of them building this system along the lines of principles, but in a way that will truly allow them to organize and structure their lives simply and in a way that's sustainable and doable over time, but so that you can truly focus on these projects, these outcomes, these relationships and things that are going to matter most to you and to those around you, right? To allow you to make that difference in the world in whatever way that's meant to be. And I know that sounds very idealistic, but it's very true and it's very important. Like, we want to help as many people as we can be able to create a simple system that allows their music, that creativity, the what they're meant to do, to emerge and be created.
Well, and I'm 100% confident that you take someone who has desires to do something, unique based on their experiences, their goals. You give that person with a desire the structure of this command central where they don't feel that overwhelm anymore. I'm 100% confident that they're going to have a much bigger chance of actually getting those things done. Like, that's what feels like so exciting for me, because it hurts my heart to think about people living a life of unfulfilled dreams. And I lived in that for a little while where I thought my dreams were kind of over. I didn't know how I was going to get out of it. I was so overwhelmed by family life and adulthood and all the things that were coming with it that all my little dreams that I had when I was, 15, 16, 17, they just didn't feel possible anymore because adulting, that was really hard for me. And being able to then, as we became, husband and wife, and as we started having children, I just felt like, man, I'm just trying to keep the floor vacuumed. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do something bigger than that. But building the command central for me is what helped unlock that, because I could do a little bit at a time. But when you know that your efforts will yield results, and then when you feel them and you see the difference shaping your life, I mean, it's awesome. It's amazing. Okay, so question and invitation. Should we go ahead and close with those?
Yes.
So question, have you created an optimal current projects list? Maybe minimum, probably 1. Maximum 8 projects.
Maybe more than 0, less than 50.
So have you created that list? How's it going? And then invitation. If you haven't done a mind sweep recently, and if you're feeling a little overwhelmed mentally right now, we encourage you to take some time, go through the steps we covered in this podcast, or take that free training, LearnDoBecome.com/step. Go through that, figure out what your projects are, and let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear about it. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and thanks for coming into our lives and letting us kind of open our hearts and minds to you. I hope that as we were talking about some of the things that we've been working on, things we've struggled with, and things that have been successful in our lives, that this podcast gave you ideas. Now, as far as next steps, first of all, we definitely want you to be connected with us at LearnDoBecome. Subscribing to a podcast is great, but if you go to LearnDoBecome.com/connect, you're going to see how you can make sure you're getting our emails, how you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We have a Facebook group. If you just kind of click through and just connect, we have a lot of free ways to do that. We also have a couple of programs. One is our STEP program. We've been talking about the podcast. Another one is our Arise membership that we're just getting ready to open. If you want to make sure you're on the wait list for that, just make sure you're on our newsletter list, or you can go to LearnDoBecome.com/arise, and you can take a personal assessment that helps you to see where we're going to be focusing our attention in the Arise program. And you can see how you're doing and how you're feeling about those areas. And if you feel like, hey, it'd be awesome to be part of this community so I can focus on these things and so I can see significant improvements on a day-to-day basis. We're excited to have you here with us and grateful for you. And everything is on our show notes page as well. So we usually just put a link. I don't know where you're listening to this. If you're listening to it from our show notes page, you're already there. If you're listening to it on a podcast player, in the description, we usually have a link. Or you can just go to LearnDoBecome.com/radio. And that takes you to all of our podcasts. We have an awesome search function on our website. We try to make it really easy. And we have an amazing team standing by if you need help from an actual person. All right. Thank you. Have a great day. We'll see you soon at LearnDoBecome.com.